Hello, my children, Mother Lord Bathory, and welcome back to another episode of Metal that I listened to this week. This week's sort of theme, I guess, turned out to be black metal. We're going to be talking about black metal that I listened to this week. A kind of rule that I gave myself for this episode was to avoid like black metal albums that I already talk about a lot on this channel, because I love black metal. I have my favorite albums. But it gets pretty stale and probably pretty annoying for you guys when it's just me talking about the same 3 albums that I listened to, like back to back consecutively for like 3 weeks straight. Which is really funny because the first album that I'm going to be talking about today is Dissection's The Somberlain. Because as always, I love this album. It's one of my all-time favorite black metal albums. I got tired of listening to it, but I never got tired of it. I absolutely love everything about this album. I love the harmonies. I love how prominent the bass is throughout this album, and I just will never stop recommending it as like a beginner black metal album recommendation. Whether you're someone trying to get into the genre of black metal, or even just metal as a whole, I'd say that the Somberlain is actually a pretty solid just metal album to listen to if you're new to the whole genre of just metal, because it's dark, but it's not intimidating. And it doesn't talk about your usual satanic, like, sacrifices, infant blood drinking. It sings about themes of suicide, the afterlife, and all these, like, themes about mental health that you don't really, like, hear in the more edgier side of, like, black metal, especially from the second wave. So yeah, the Somberlain, Dissection. It's been one of the recurring albums that I've been listening to this week because I just love it to death. I will never stop loving it to death. And it's also one of the first albums that I've been trying to learn just on bass. So I'm going to be listening to it like whether I like it or not, because I really need to learn how to play. First off, I need to learn how to play black metal songs on bass. Second, I just need to like get my bass learning muscles moving. I don't know what I was trying to say. And then next up, I'm going to be talking about All the Dread Magnificence of Perversity by the project Gnaw Their Tongues. Now, Gnaw Their Tongues is a black metal related project that I've been dying to talk about on this channel for a hell of a long time. For as long as I've been like the black metal guy on YouTube. Not the black metal guy, but just a guy that talks about black metal on YouTube. Gnaw Their Tongues is a like solo ambient noise experimental black metal project. I forget where from. And it is like one of my all-time favorite just black metal projects, and it's a good like introduction to the experimental side of black metal and like extreme just black ambience. In the past, I've talked about and described like black metal bands and the black metal genre as like a horror movie. Like, you get the same experience listening to black metal, generally speaking, as you would, like, a horror movie. If bands like Venom, Bathory, Mayhem, all these, like, edgy, like, Immortal, all these bands are, like, trying to give the same experience as, like, Jason, Freddy, and all these other slashers, then I'd say a project like Gnaw Their Tongues tries to give you the same experience as, like, watching a movie like Hostel or Saw or Cannibal Holocaust, Mondo films, any kind of, like, disturbing extreme art film. That's where I feel like Gnaw Their Tongues would lie in comparison in like this whole like horror movie allegory. Gnaw Their Tongues holds a very special place in my heart purely for the fact that it is one of the like small few black metal projects that has genuinely managed to scare me. So for a little bit of context, the way that I kind of discover like new black metal bands and projects is I'll add like a new album or two to a playlist that I already listened to on repeat. And then I shuffle it, and then by random chance, some of those new songs might come up in like my queue, and if I like it, I synergize with it. That's how I discover new songs. I discovered Gnaw Their Tongues by doing the same thing, and I did it for my Black Metal to Fall Asleep to playlist. I fall asleep to a playlist of black metal, which is probably a very interesting sentence for me to say. So I fall asleep with this playlist, and at some point, a Gnaw Their Tongues song comes on it. Specifically, it's the title track of this album, All the Dread Magnificence of Perversity. It plays, and it absolutely scared the shit out of me, because at the beginning of this track, there's like an audio sample of a woman yelling help, like she's crying for help. And you can imagine how horrifying that sounds at 3 in the morning. Next album that I'm going to be talking about here is 10th Sublevel of Suicide by Leviathan. This is another album that I have talked about on the channel before, but I've never really done it justice. In fact, I kind of pissed off both sides of the argument that I was trying to, avoid when I was talking about 10th Sublevel. I pissed off the United States black metal fans, and then the depressive, suicidal black metal fans, because I'm pretty sure if I recall correctly, I only talked about Leviathan as a depressive band, and I still pissed off the depressive fans that don't like it when I call it that. But I also pissed off the United States black metal fans that didn't like that I didn't include it in my USBM episode. So I'm going to try to amend that by just not talking about it as either of these. Outside of all of that weird stuff, I also never did this album any justice because I never properly expressed how important this album was to me, because 10th Sublevel of Suicide was one of the first genuine black metal albums that I discovered when I was getting into the genre. I discovered Venom and Bathory first, but I never got into the true sound of black metal, where it's suicidal, satanic. But that being said, Leviathan and 10th Sublevel was never really that satanic. It was more on the mental health side of black metal lyrics and imagery. But I never really got to be introduced to that true evil depressive sound that's typically associated with the genre up until I discovered Leviathan. So I have talked about before how there are metal albums throughout my life that have gotten me through some pretty tough times. Pantera's Great Southern Trendkill got me through. Oh, God, I'm really gassy right now. Great Southern Trendkill got me through the first round of existential COVID mental health crises. 10th Sublevel of Suicide kind of has that same impact on me, but it came at a much later time when I had this is my first year of college. I'm freshly 18, and I was really contemplating where I was gonna go in life at this point. And I mean, I still do. I'm gonna be totally honest, but it was somehow even worse back then. And discovering 10th Sublevel of Suicide and discovering black metal and the whole mental health black metal imagery really impacted me, because unfortunately I'm going to be quoting Deathgasm here, or not unfortunately, but everybody uses the Deathgasm quote here. I'm not going to say it verbatim, but having a black metal band and just metal project that kind of understands what you're going through and is able to let out the emotions that you want to was really nice to have for me at that time. So discovering 10th Sublevel of Suicide and its depressive anger sound is an experience that I'm never going to be able to have again, unless it's in the next 3 years or so, when I'm feeling like shit about a different part of my life, how I'm going to probably die in my 30s or something. Another song that I've kind of been attached to this week is At the Sound of the Demon Bell by Merciful Fate. Now, I will say this, I am still pretty picky about King Diamond's vocals, so that's why I only picked one song in relation to a discussion regarding King Diamond, respectfully. I will say, though, I have been slowly getting into the Melissa album. It's just King Diamond, I love him to death. I love his theatrics, and I love his vocals on certain songs. But I'm still really picky, especially when I'm trying to recommend King Diamond songs to other people. At the Sound of the Demon Bell is the Merciful Fate King Diamond song that I have to recommend regardless of vocals, because it's At the Sound of the Demon Bell is just the Merciful Fate song and just the King Diamond song that I would pick to introduce to anybody that's trying to get into King Diamond, get into Merciful Fate, because I mean, everything about it is pretty good, even with the vocals. It's another one of those King Diamond songs where you can't have the song without the vocals. And I'm someone that's already pretty picky about the vocals, so that is saying something. On top of all this, this also became my anthem for the Halloween season, because it's literally a song about Halloween. And then my favorite part about this song in particular are the breakdowns, the first one, and then especially the one at the end. And I'm even more so bummed out at how short the second breakdown is at the end of this song. Cote de Ghouls is a recurring character on this channel as well. I talk about the Henbane album as much as I talk about the Somberlain. So after all the like glazing about the Henbane album, I decided to listen to the rest of their stuff, and I decided to binge their debut album, Haxan. And in my opinion, it's another genuinely scary black metal album. It's pretty much up there with like Gnaw Their Tongues. Compared to Henbane, the Haxan album is much more raw, much more primitive, and just downright depraved. There are still instrumentals throughout this track, but it is more primarily focused on ambience. A lot of the horror from this album comes from it. In fact, this album uses a lot of samples such as like babies crying to really capture the essence of weird satanic infant sacrifice. Lyrics and vocals, as always, are great. Culte de Ghouls has my all-time just favorite imagery out of any black metal band, any black metal project, because their vocabulary is just so blasphemous, depraved, and it's just vulgar. And on top of that, they have like, I don't know how to say it, they have the presence to really make those vocals pack like a punch compared to other black metal bands, if that makes any sense. The Henbane album sounds like it's a book of spells, whereas Haxan feels more like it's from the perspective of the people performing those like dark black magic rituals. The next kind of black metal project I'm going to be talking about is another kind of experimental ambient noise black metal project, and it is the Reduction album by Distorted Cognitions. Distorted Cognitions is another black metal adjacent project that I discovered when I was first getting into the genre, and I'm going to be honest, that's probably why I gravitated more towards experimental black metal rather than like the typical bands. Like, my all-time favorite black metal bands do happen to be like the more coherent ones, but I still gravitate towards, like, the weird, pure noise. Like, if people talk about black metal just being pure noise, I would show them what that would actually mean if, like, they knew what pure noise sounded like. The only track that I had listened to off of the Reduction album was Mechanism of Gaia. That was, like, the first and only, like, Distorted Cognitions track that I had listened to up until this point. And it wasn't until, like, this past week that I had decided to truly get into the whole album. Black metal, in my opinion, is at its true scariest when it's just an experimental project. Projects like Emit, Gnaw Their Tongues, and of course Distorted Cognitions. Antius, the French project that has like instrumentals, their ambient parts of like their tracks are like absolutely brutal to listen to. And out of all the ambience-based projects that I've talked about today and just in general on this channel, this one is the most like pure noise out of all of them. If you want like a weird but also creepy black metal noise like adjacent project, I would highly recommend like Distorted Cognitions and this album in particular. The last thing I'm going to be talking about here is actually a demo. It's Temple of Oath by the band Madness. Madness is a duo from Indiana, and they are also a recurring viewer of the channel. So ever since they kind of started commenting on my videos, I've been kind of waiting for the right moment to shout them out. And it's mostly because, like, a promise that I made to myself when I decided to mention black metal in the future was to try and push out more, like, bands and more projects that aren't just the ones that everybody talks about. All the more, I guess, mainstream black metal bands for a genre of music that's already pretty underground somehow. I really wanted to get, like, somehow even more underground for an underground genre, and Madness is that band for this week's episode. Madness has a pretty brutal and pretty fast, raw sound. And raw sound is another one of my, like, just all-time favorite black metal sounds, so I was able to latch on pretty easily. If you want something to listen to if you're just pissed off, then, like, this demo and just Madness as a whole is, like, the underground black metal band for you, because not only is it going to be something you're going to enjoy listening to, it's something that you can say that you listen to that's underground. So in conclusion, just go listen to Madness, subscribe to their YouTube channel. If you're a newer, like, viewer of this channel who's been introduced to black metal thanks to me, and just metal as a whole, support your underground black metal bands, support local bands as a whole, and just go out and scare normal people with it. And with that, that's pretty much all I really have for this video. This has just been black metal that I listened to this week. If you have any more just black metal recommendations or any metal recommendations, period, shoot them in the comments below and they might show up in a future episode or so. Just in general, give me a comment about what you guys would want to see me talk about on this channel, because I've talked about it before. I've been pretty drained creatively in terms of video ideas. If you want to see me talk about things like how to not be a poser, let me know and I'll probably do that as a video in the future or something. But that's all I really have for this video completely. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with someone who's new to metal and just new to black metal. And I'll see you all in the next video. Stay tuned.